Thank you very much. Officially, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Today's call is specifically to do a demo on PolicyMap. This is a technology that some folks have expressed interest in across the network. My name is Beck Moore. For those of you who I don't know, I'm the CEO here at CAAP. We have been exploring just different opportunities to continue to create a robust membership for you all here at CAAP. And so this is one of those things that we're exploring at the moment. I know that Jen Winchmeyer from Tri-County is on the call, and she's going to, I think, start us off, if you don't mind, Jen, by just sharing a little bit about this technology in the past, and then we're going to turn it over to Kristen to take us away and do a quick demo. Sorry to put you on the spot, Jen.
For this,
just real quick. I know. Brief.
So we've had a subscription to PolicyMap for a number of years through a particular grant that we get related to our community revitalization work, and we've used PolicyMap almost exclusively for this work because of the features that it has. So we're able to pull down the data points in PolicyMap and map them and overlay different data points so that we could see how these maybe non-obvious intersections actually occur. And then we're also able to upload our own data into it and overlay that on top of it. So for example, this community has really poor health outcomes. And the thing that we kept hearing was, yeah, it's a poor community, so that's why it has poor health outcomes. But we were able to pull up poverty data and health data and other data points from PolicyMap and overlay it with where we knew the food access points were. And then we were able to map how people got from their homes to those food access points. And we're able to show that there was no safe route for people to walk to those food access points, and or no bus routes from people's homes to those food access points. And therefore work with our city administration to change some of the policies around how people got to those food access points, for example, where crosswalks are located, where other pedestrian safety initiatives are put in place, and or work with our food pantry or our food bank to get food pantries located in a place that made sense to the folks that lived here. And then begin to show how access to healthy food would begin to impact overall health and well-being and improve those health outcomes. And that's just one example of the way we did it. We overlaid crime data with safe routes to school data, with blight data, with all kinds of information. And just, again, it helps us visualize data so much differently. But the real beauty of PolicyMap is able to overlay those data points in a map, as well as upload our own data and overlay that as well. So that's how we've used it in the past.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. And so today, everybody, you have, through your CAAP membership, you have access to a community needs assessment tool that we have a partnership with the University of Missouri, and specifically, right, that is something that you're able to utilize. PolicyMap is one of those tools, again, that we're trying to explore to see if there's an interest, a need, and a desire, and layering that on top of additional things that we're already providing here at CAAP. And so with that, I'm going to say to Kristen, thank you for joining us and taking some time to do this demo. And I'm going to be quiet and let you take the show on.
Great. Thanks so much, Beck. And thanks, Jen, for sharing. And really nice to see you all. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Oops. And we'll get started. 1 second. What did I do here? So sorry. There we go. All right. So there's no software. It's just an online tool. It is available for the whole nation. So I'll show you here. You'll go and log in. And so you'd be able to provide logins to folks in your organization who would make sense to, who would like to access it. But again, you don't have to download anything. And this is the tool. And so right here, you can zoom into a location that can be a specific address, city, state, zip code. So say if we go to Westmoreland County, You can zoom right into the county. You can also zoom into one of these areas. And then these menus above the map are filled with data. So altogether, there's about 150 different sources of kind of secondary data that our data team pulls from different sources and tries to keep as up to date as possible in these menus. So you'll see, just looking at the topics, it covers a lot of areas that are relevant to the work of community action agencies. And you'll see as you click on a menu and scroll through, you'll see the menus keep spanning out. So in this case, right, we can look at people in poverty. You'll also see kind of disaggregations for specific communities, right, by race and ethnicity, by age, et cetera, whenever possible. So if we just want to look at a basic kind of layered data set or data layer here, say the poverty rate in the county. So you can see that as I hover, I'm seeing the value. Right now it's shading at like a zip code level, but I can change that if I want it to be a little more granular, say at a census tract, like more of a neighborhood level. I can change it to that, and now I can see this is going to shading at a like a census tract level here. And then when you click on an area, right, you'll see not just the value, in this case, the poverty rate, but also how that's been changing over time, right? So we can see in this community that the poverty has been went up pretty significantly. It's gone down a little bit since more recently. And if you want to kind of get a sense of how that compares to say the county or the state, you can open up this trend chart in a larger view, and then say if we want to see how that compares to the city, the county, right, or these larger kind of geographies, we can do that. And when you hover, you can see these values. So you can see poverty is pretty significantly higher in this neighborhood, and what the trends are looking like. And if you wanted to export these trend charts, you can do that here, either as an image, a PNG file, or you can extract the raw data as well if you'd like, in a CSV file. And just in terms of some of the basics of how to work with a data layer like this, you'll see in the legend, there's a lot of different options in terms of if you want to look at historic time periods. You can also look at different, we call them variables. But so, if you're thinking about, site, programming, sites of interventions, you might sometimes want to get a sense of like the actual number, right, of a certain type of population or community, right, instead of the percent. So now in this case, we're looking at the estimated number of people in poverty by community. And then you'll also see our team calculates percent changes whenever possible. So this is just going to be another way of seeing change over time, kind of spatially. So with this map here, we're seeing the areas that are the darkest orange are those that have seen the greatest decrease in poverty over this time period. And those that are the darkest purple are areas where poverty has been increasing, right? So again, this is another way of showing, seeing trends in your kind of service area. But you'll see different kind of variable options. And in terms of exporting, we'll get to, in terms of work that you do in the tool, you can export. I'll show you how to print a map. So really kind of obvious, there's many different use cases for your type of organization. One is certainly for development purposes, right? If you want to use it for grants or for presentations, proposals, different things. If you want to export a map that you create, you can change down here, like the base map settings. If you want, I often remove the roads unless I want to look at them, but you can, adjust the labeling. You can also here overlay transit lines. So that can be really useful in thinking about transit access. So those are available for overlay down here. And then you can also change the color ramp. So if you don't want the purple ramp for what you're creating, you can change that. There will very soon be an option to create your own color ramp, so you can actually have branding that matches the colors of your other materials for your organization. You can also adjust the ranges here. So basically, when you're first putting data on the map, it's going to shade based on the values for the whole country. And so depending, if you're in a particularly rural area or particularly high poverty urban area or something, right, you might, and what data you're looking at, you might want to adjust the ranges. You can also just move the scroll bar, right? And you'll see the map respond. If you want the top tier to instead be 20%, you can see you can just set the values or move the scroll bar and the map responds. And you can also, if you just want the map to show you certain areas, you can click on the legend and it will just show you those. And then we very recently just added this new button, which is super helpful, which has the map reshade based on just the region you're looking at. So in most cases, since you're all very place-based and a very specific, county or counties, you'll probably want to usually have this selected so that it's shading based on just the region that you're looking at. And this here is showing you which geographies the data is available at. So right now this is shading at a census tract or like a neighborhood level, but you can also shade it, say, a zip code if you wanted, or these other geographies. And so that's the basics of a layer. And then these menus all have sections, or most of them have sections that say locations under them. So you'll see, right, like say under health facility locations, you can see these are going to be, if it says locations, this is going to be what we call address level data. So specific like address level locations. So for example, if you want to see what type of grocery retail access is in these areas, you can overlay that. And then when you click on a point, you'll see information about it. And then all of the point data sets will have different filters available. So in this case, you can filter by the type of store or like full service or partial service, or by the type of store, right? So this is going to show you, shading with shading what type of grocery store is in the area. So these blues are dollar stores versus these blues are the natural gourmet stores, right? The oranges being the full scale, supermarkets. And so there's a lot of different kind of community asset data. So if you're doing I know you do a lot of needs assessments, and there's probably some like asset mapping with that. You'll find a lot of different community assets as this kind of like point data in the tool that you can overlay with the layers as well. So things like grocery stores, farmers markets, SNAP retail locations, different health facility locations. Under education, you'll see a lot of address level kind of school data, where Head Start locations are, and libraries, higher education. We have data in here that we license from great schools. So you can say put schools on the map and color code by their great schools rating. There's a nonprofit data set under quality of life that might be of interest in terms of that type of like asset mapping, right, where you can put nonprofits on the map and say filter by a certain type of nonprofit. And so, yeah, a lot of different kind of point community asset data sets. And yeah, just in terms, and then over here, you can overlay boundaries. So in this case, if we wanted to say, see just where our county boundary is, as a point of reference, you can overlay these different geographic boundaries on top and adjust. Again, there's always different ways of adjusting the aesthetics. So changing the way the lines look and whether there's labels, et cetera. And so yeah, those boundaries are up here. So you can see the different types of options if you want to see the zip codes or legislative districts or whatnot. On top of maps that you create, you can overlay those up here. And you can also, let me just go back to select this county again, just to show you one other thing that before we go to print a map, you can, if you want to clip the map so that it just shades for the current region that you're, like just your, say, county, if you just have one county, you can click here and we can clip. So that's going to have it shade more like an island, right? So if you want to print a map that is only showing your service area. And one thing that's really neat is that if you have this map extent button selected, it will use the boundaries of the basically your county or this boundary that's selected to use as the kind of parameters of for shading the map. So it's going to allow you to easily pull out, you can see the darkest areas really easily, the lightest areas. So instead of factoring in, all these census tracts in the broader region, it's just factoring in this case, Westmoreland County. And so if you wanted to print a map like this, you'd go here. So this is going to be how you extract a static image of a map that you create. I'll show you also how to extract, you can extract the raw data from PolicyMap really easily if you want to use the raw data elsewhere. But you can see once you adjust all of the things aesthetically in the map before you come here, like the colors and the labels and whether you have transit lines and, you know, all types of things, you can you know, move around. You can select landscape or portrait, you know, adjust your text size, PDF or PNG file, depending on what you're planning to do with it. You can keep our legend, or, you know, or you can remove it. You can also keep our title, or you can click here and give it its own title. You know, and you can have our description, or you can give it its own description, so that ideally, you know, once you've created, you know, adjust everything that you can and customize it all the ways you want, that you'd be able to just export these maps with its own title and paragraph of subtext, you know, for whatever you created it for, and you'd be able to just export here and easily insert it into, you know, whatever it is that you created it for, whether a proposal, presentation, etc. So that's going to be how you would extract a static image of work that you create. And I just wanted to say too, I don't have the chat up, just because it's hard to pull that up in my screen while I'm doing this. So Beck or Erica, if one of you, or could just, if you see questions that people are asking in the chat, if you could just vocalize them so I can answer them. I'd love to have questions come in, you know, as I'm doing the demo.
Yeah, I don't see any in the chat yet.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So yeah, that's kind of the basics with how you work with an individual kind of layer and point data set. And yeah, I'll also just show you now how you can download like raw data. So if, say, you wanted this kind of poverty data, and I'll just, for as an example, let's say put elementary schools on the map, or here, I'll put we'll do elementary schools. So I'll just put this public schools and filter out, say, elementary schools, just as a level primary. So let's say I wanted to download. When I click on this for this county, right, you can see it pulls up this sidebar. I selected download here. So this gives you 3 different options to download the data for your area. So one is going to be to extract the layer data, right? So if you wanted the poverty data for all the census tracts or all the zip codes in your agency's area, you know, or any other of the layer data that's in the tool, you can download that here. If you want to, you can also extract the point data. So basically, this is going to query the data, in this case, the elementary schools, with all the enrollment and demographic information about them for your, in this case, for the county, but for your agency's area. And then the third option is a little more advanced, but it's really neat. And this allows you to basically stamp the point data to the layer. So basically, with this data we have on the map, what you'd get back is a file with all your elementary schools with enrollment and demographic information about them, and then additional columns in your spreadsheet saying what the poverty rate is in the area where that school is. And we could have selected, if I know I was going to pick schools, I could have selected instead the poverty rate for you know, youth specifically, right? Because we have those disaggregations available. But this basically allows you to attach any community level information to your points. And as Jen mentioned, we'll get to uploading your own data into the tool. So say your food pantry locations, or you know, any like program, you know, site locations. So you can, once you upload those, you'd be able to use this feature if there was any like more community level information that you wanted to get about those locations, kind of in bulk. You can use this feature to do that. And then you just download. And so that's kind of easy. Yeah, it's very easy to extract the raw data from the tool, as well if you have anyone at your agency who would like to further manipulate, you know, the data, or use it in create any other graphs or anything, you know, charts for, yeah, development or any other purposes. So yeah, I was going to just walk through some of the other data and then maybe zoom into another agency area and show some of the other functionality. But first, I just will stop and see if anyone has a question they want to ask right now, or a comment or anything. I'll just take a second. Okay. So there is, yeah, let's zoom into another area and we can look at some other kind of health related data as well. So if we let's zoom into, I know there's, I think Union Snyder, there were supposed to be some folks. Sorry, I'm having trouble with this Zoom thing here. Okay. So let's say if we zoom it over to Snyder County. So with this, I know with some of the agencies, you work in multiple counties. And so that is an example where you might want to create a region that is of your kind of full service area. And so there is a feature through which you can do that. And that's called a custom region feature that's right here. So this is really neat in that it allows you to create any kind of custom area of analysis. So an obvious example would be assembling multiple counties for to create a kind of full service region for you. But there's also some other very applicable kind of use cases with this feature as well. So there are 3 options for creating these. The first is to draw a region on the map. So if you have an initiative that's very place focused on a certain neighborhood, and you want to create that region and follow street boundaries, you can do that with the draw option. You can assemble regions, which I'll show you with the multiple county example, but you could also assemble zip codes or something else like that. And then the third option is really applicable as well, where you can do a radius around a location. So if you are kind of considering where to a new potential site location, right? And maybe you want to do a radius and get a sense of overview of the community, and how it's changing or, needs. And within a 2 or 3 mile radius of that address, you could create a radius region. But right now I'll just show you real quick how you would create an assembled region. So you can see once you click that option, you select which geography you want to assemble. So I'll select counties. And then, so if I want to create one from the Union Snyder counties, then you give it a name, and then you can save it. And now it's basically, it's going to work kind of like all the other geographies in PolicyMap. So you can, again, have all that functionality, like being able to clip the map for that 2 county area, right? And download data for that 2 county area, kind of generate reports, which you haven't talked about for that 2 county area. But that's going to be for those of you especially that work in, multi-county area, this will be really helpful. And then in terms of other customizations, say, I know with the case of what Jen was talking about, we're looking at, say, health related data. So you can see some of what's available here. There's a lot of really granular kind of census tract level data. And let's say, actually, I'm going to show you one other thing about the data here. So this is a really good example, maybe where you might put data on the map and not know what it is you're looking at, right? So this here is called an area deprivation index. But if you are not familiar with it, it's kind of hard to know what it is that you're looking at. And so you can always click here on this eye. And this is where our data team provides kind of the initial information that we think users need to know about the data, since we do have it from so many sources. And we're trying to make the tool as easy to use as possible and user friendly for people in all different roles with different levels of experience with data. So this is where we provide that kind of initial information that we think is most useful for users. So basically, this is a data set that we added. It was created by some health disparities researchers at University of Wisconsin, and it factors in these different social determinants of health and to create an index score that they call an area deprivation index. And the higher ADI scores have been found to correlate with worse health outcomes in measures like life expectancy. And if you want more information about this data or see when it was last updated in PolicyMap, or get more kind of documentation, you can always click here to our data dictionary. And that's where our team goes into kind of more robust detail about all of the data that's in the tool. I'll just show you really quick what this looks like. So if you do have someone that wants to kind of get more in the weeds, or you want to know when the data is current as of, et cetera, you can see this is And there's always links back to original sources. So you can see that when it was updated in PolicyMap, and then there's more documentation here for anyone that, if you do want to get more in the weeds with it. But I just wanted to show you this as an example so that you can, ideally be able to successfully use all the data that's in here in those cases that are less obvious than, say, the poverty rate, right? Then that's how you'd kind of get more information. And in this case, we also created a rank just to kind of increase usability for some of our users as well, right? So going very low to very high. So you can see, yeah, that's how you'd find out more information about the data you're looking at. But let's say, back to Jen's example with the food pantries, and looking at some health related data. So if we want to upload our own data, that's going to be right here where it says data loader. And so this is for uploading what I'd call address level data. So basically it needs, it would have to be in a CSV file, and you need address, city, state, and zip code. But let's say if we want to, we're at Union Snyder and we want to upload, say, our food pantry locations. I'll just take this off the map. So we click here on the data loader. And so I have my CSV file ready. So I just go browse to it. And then once I select the file, I give it a name. And you generally make it available to start by make it accessible just to yourself, but you can also, at any point, you can share the data set with others, colleagues that have access to PolicyMap as well. But usually I'd start making it accessible just to myself. And you can either have the legend show who made it and when, or you can exclude that, which is a nice option. And then you can select which icon that you want for the data set. And then you import the spreadsheet. And this is a pretty simple file. I just made this. I think there were just 4 food pantries listed on the website. So I just put them into a kind of sample data set. And so you can see, my file just had a zip code, city, state, and address fields. But it can also have other fields. So I just put some sample fields in here that aren't real. So don't focus on them. And then, but you can adjust the data type and everything. And then it goes to geocode the locations, the addresses. And so you can see all the ones that are green were successfully found on the map from the addresses that I provided. But if you see any that are red, you can also just click and edit, click on this button, and you're able to just edit within the interface. You don't have to go through like changing your CSV file and editing it there and then re-importing. You can just do it in here. And so once you have this the way you want, you go to save and continue. And now we're able to see the food pantries, right, locations, and have that as an overlay in the data set. I mean, in PolicyMap. And once you create it, once it's perfect, and then the way you want it, if you want to then share it with any of your colleagues, you can always do that later as well. But now I'll just go and we can view those on the map. And now this food pantries, you can see when I click on one, you'll see the information, the fields of information that were in the file. And again, this is all fake information besides the addresses that I got from the website, so don't pay attention. But you can have up to like 49 columns of information. So if you have a lot of different, I'll think of all the fields of information you have about your sites, you'd be able, that information would be represented in these bubbles when you click on a point. So yeah, now that's going to live here. This My Data, this tab that says My Data is where any data that you yourself have uploaded or that your colleagues have uploaded and shared with you, or if there was data that PolicyMap uploaded for you, that would be in this My Data menu. So here, when I click here, you can see this food pantries that I just updated is right here. And so here, I have data from all over the country, but you would just have data specific to your organization in this menu. So that's what the My Data tab is for. And so now, and I'm actually, I think with this custom region, you can change the way it looks too. I think I might just make it, yeah, so there's no, it's not filled in. It's just a little nicer to look at with other data. So if we want to, now we have food pantries, if you want to look at that, you know, in relation to say certain like risk factors, right? So maybe like obesity, right? As a layer underneath it. Now we can overlay the food pantry locations, you know, with this other information, right? So we can see the obesity rate. So by this McClure site, you can see about 40% of adults are obese, versus over here, it's about 31%. And so you can start doing those overlays with your site information. And you can upload an unlimited number of data sets yourself. That is, you can give them all different icons and different names. So there's no limit to that. The only limit with those uploads is that the file has to have less than 5,000 rows, which for your work, I'm guessing that would cover pretty much every data set, you know, set of locations that you want to upload. So I don't anticipate you having any kind of issues with those uploads. So that's how you would upload your own kind of site locations into the map. And let me just see what time it is. So yeah, I'm going to show you next a multi-layer option. That's a really unique part of the tool that's a little bit more advanced. But yeah, again, I just want to stop and see if there's any questions or comments or anything so far.
There is one question in the log that, or in the chat, that you may have already answered about how, if the data automatically updates, that's available in there now, and or how frequently.
Sure. Yeah, so it most of it is updated annually, but it's all, you know, we have about, like I said, about 150 different sources in here, so they get updated at different times. So when it comes to the big, you know, releases, so say a census release, you know, the American Community Survey or the decennial release, like we know exactly when it'll be updated, and then we always have it updated in PolicyMap, you know, within a week or so of when it's updated by the updates available from the source. But there are so many sources in here, so it does vary. Basically, our team is just kind of updating data throughout the year. There are a few exceptions where we update data on a quarterly basis. So say like vacancy, we have really good vacancy data that we license from a vendor, since we have a lot of users that need good vacancy data. And you can see this is at a, even goes down to a census, a block group level, even more granular. And so this is an example where we update the data on a quarterly basis. And yeah, you'll see this, these trend charts, right? Seeing how in this case, there's residential and there's commercial vacancy. And so you can see how that is changing over time. So there are some examples where we update data quarterly. And then there's the rare example like unemployment that we update, you know, from the BLS monthly. But for the most part, you know, almost all the data is updated annually, and it's just at different times during the year. So yeah, it's not automatic, but.
Thank you. And then there's another question there about the 5,000 limitation for the upload, and whether or not that could potentially be broken down into multiple files, specifically, you know, someone thinking about mapping client home addresses across a region.
Yeah, I mean, you can upload as many files yourself as you would like. So if you have, you know, 25,000 that you want to upload, you could do that in 3 uploads, right? 10,000, 10,000, and 5,000, and just give them the same icon and have them on the map at the same time. I mean, that's going to be a lot of points. So yeah, but you'd have to, if at least within, without having an extra charge. I mean, we do custom, our team does custom data loading. So there's more sophisticated ways that we can load data, but that would be, that's not like a self-service option. So within the self-service option that you can just use by yourself, you know, with no fee and on an unlimited basis, that's going to, if you want to just use that and you have this 25,000 records, then you would need to break it up into 3 different uploads. Because there's no limit on the number of uploads you do. It's just the system cuts you off at 10,000 per record per upload. But yeah, we do. There is custom data loading available that it's just on an hourly basis. So if you had a project, you know, that you where you had some other data of yours, that in-house data that you really wanted loaded in, that is beyond what you can do with a self-service data loader. So maybe like a heat map, right? Like by census tractor zip code of client, client served, right? Our team does that. It's just our team has to do that. And so there's an hourly kind of fee. And I could show you an example of like United Ways we work with, right? Where we have create zip code level. They want to see the communities that in aggregate they're serving in a heat map to be able to use in the platform and with the multi-layering. And that is an option. It's just there isn't currently a self-service option for that more kind of sophisticated data loading beyond this point level data in batches of 10,000 or less.
And then there's another question in it. I'm just going to read it. How to geocode, I think it's their own data on PolicyMap. So if they have their own data set, I'm assuming to geocode that.
Yeah, so I mean that's what we just did with the food pantry. So you basically just would have a CSV file with and it just has to have less than 49 columns. So that include address, city, state, and zip code. And so the tool geocodes it for you. Like my file didn't have the latitude and longitude of these food pantry locations, but the tool geocoded it the locations based on the address, city, state, and zip code. So yes, it does geocode. It geocodes really fast and easily. And like I was saying, you can also, for sites that addresses that it doesn't successfully find, you can easily just edit those in the interface. It's like if you've ever geocoded using anything else, you'll find this extremely refreshing. It's really easy to change addresses, update addresses. And say you want to add a new food pantry location, you can always just go back and edit this data set, right? You go here to the I, and then we can go back. And if we added a new food pantry, we would just go here to edit points. And then so it's super easy. And you can just add your food pantry in here and put the address and everything in and save it. And it's really easy to use. So that's how you would geocode your address level data in here. Were there any other questions, Beck?
It doesn't look like there are any other questions right now.
Okay, great. So I'll show you now. There's a few other features I want to show you. One is the multi-layering, and then there's some reports that you might find interesting as well. And then we can always look at some additional data if you'd like. So the multi-layering allows you to multi-layer to put up to 5 different layers on the map at the same time. So when it comes to this address level data, like food pantries and those like address level data, you can put those on the map at the same time, right? So say if we want to put that on the grocery retail locations with our food pantries, right? You can put them on at the same time. We could also put on, say, SNAP retail locations or farmers markets or whatever. There's no limit other than you being able to make sense of what's on the map, which is a consideration for sure. But when it comes to layers, if you want to layer, use multiple layers together, you'll click over here where it says multi-layer. And this is a little bit more advanced. And there are, here, I'll remove this. There are 3 ways of doing this. So one is two different ways. One's to use an AND function, and one's to use an OR function. And so, hold on, multi-layer, there we go. We'll start with just showing an example of the AND function. So the AND is going to have the map show you the areas of intersection. So where like the first thing is true and the second and the third. And then the OR function is more of an overlay. So you can kind of see how different layers like interact or relate. And so if we say we want to start with an example to see, maybe we're thinking about where to open another food pantry site in this region. Maybe want to identify areas that might be higher need, and then we could overlay our current food pantry sites. So let's maybe we want to see where, we'll start with the obesity. So when you first put a layer on, so this here is the estimated % of adults who are obese. Right now it's showing the full kind of option of ranges. So everything's shaded purple. But as you move the scroll bar, you see the map start responding, right? And so if we want to specifically maybe see where this is 35% or higher, right? So where now these purple areas are areas where 35% or more of adults are obese. And then maybe want to also think about certain health conditions like diabetes, right? In terms of food access. If we want, we can put that on the map as a second layer. And when you put that second layer on, the purple areas don't change right away because again, it's showing for this variable the full kind of option of ranges. But let's say maybe we want to see where this is specifically, 10% or more of adults have diabetes. So it didn't change it too much, but again, you could adjust the ranges some more if you want, but I'll just leave it there. I saw a few purple areas go away. And maybe we want to also just put in certain like poverty thresholds. So I'll just put poverty on as a third variable. And again, we do go through the same process where the purple areas aren't going to change until I adjust the ranges. So maybe we want to see where this is 10% or higher, right? So now we're seeing certain parts of the Union Snyder area that meet all these criteria, right? Where 35% or more of adults are obese, 10% or more of adults have diabetes, and poverty is higher than 10%. And now when you click on an area that's purple, you see the value for those 1 to 5, because you can do this up to 5 variables, those 1 to 5 variables, right? So in this particular community, poverty rates around 16%, about 11% of adults have diabetes, and about 36% of adults are obese. And so maybe we want to then overlay where our current food pantry locations are, right? We can now overlay that since we uploaded it. And so you can see, yeah, maybe if there's area over here or over here that you might want to consider, but you can kind of get a sense of, once you set the parameters, this can help you make strategic decisions about, site selection and program locations, and overlaying kind of getting a sense of where current interventions are and how you might want to, make decisions going forward. And I'd also point out that in this example, I've been using like the default tends to be like the percent of people, right? But maybe you can always click on these right, to edit. And there might be cases where you want to identify, especially if you're thinking about, food pantries or a specific service where you want to know not necessarily just the percent, but you also want to know like where there's a certain number, right, of, say if you're thinking about a new like Head Start locations, or you might want to like know where there's a certain like number of kids under 5 in poverty, right, because you need a certain like threshold and not just the percent, right? So you can always adjust, or maybe you want to see a change where poverty has been increasing or decreasing, and then you can select that and then adjust the parameters so that you're seeing where poverty is increasing or decreasing or increasing by a certain percent. So there's quite a few different kind of use cases and options when you think about these different variables, right? They don't have to be like percent like I'm looking at here. But that's kind of the logic with how you use the multi-layering, at least this AND function. And so a lot of organizations will use this AND option to identify areas that meet, with certain needs, with certain characteristics that, or meet certain criteria, and then overlaying their, different community asset locations and, site program locations to be able to make some strategic decisions going forward, or to identify partners, to address certain needs and that type of thing. So yeah.
The other question that just came in was around kind of a help feature. It looks like the comment is, it looks like the site is relatively user-friendly and sort of, thoughtful and leading the user through some of the process. But if somebody gets stuck, what's the process somebody would follow?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's support section here. So there's different kind of levels of support. I mean, with the if CAAP were to provide access, through the enterprise option to agencies, there would be some focused training specifically for your agencies. And so that starts with like a kickoff training, when folks get access, and then it can be, like a refresher training or a training, maybe 6 months down the line where, where you can do some like peer sharing and peer learning about how you're using it and learn from each other. So there's that's would be specific to your the CAAP agencies. And then beyond that, if you're just in the weeds on a project and you are having trouble and need support, you can click up here where it says support. And here there's a lot of support resources. So you'll see, maybe you just forgot like how to upload your own data, and if you want to click here, you can watch a quick video about how to do it, or read a quick article about how to do it. You'll see that you can find resources around the different features here. And there's also where it says over here, training calendar, there's also trainings available all the time. So we have a customer support team. So these aren't going to be, there might be organizations on these trainings that aren't community action agency organizations that just use PolicyMap, but these are accessible even now without being subscribers. Anyone can sign up for these. So our team provides basic overview sessions every week and more advanced feature sessions. So these are good to sign up, and then you can ask your questions about your specific use cases and everything. And these are available to you every week as well if you want to do that. And then our customer support team also has an email address and a phone line. So some people, we find some people like to want to call and ask a question, some want to email the question, some want to sign up for a training, some want to not talk to anybody and like watch a video or read an article. And so we try to make all of those options accessible. But then in addition to those kind of general ones that are available for all of the users, there would also be options, like more customized training for the CAAP agencies.
So it's 9:50. I want to be thoughtful about everybody's time. We have about 10 minutes left. Any other questions that you want to make sure to get answered? I know that there was a private question to me that I will respond to as soon as I look through my notes, but anybody else, anything in particular you want to make sure to ask about a particular data set that's available, some type of functionality you're curious about, anything at all? I'm not. Okay, so there is a question in there. Do you have a sign on to access? So not right now. Today's call was really to try to give everybody a demo and to explore adding this on to CAAP membership. There's a question, Kristen, about if there's a way that folks could do a tryout option.
Yeah. Yep. We could do that.
For a temporary? Okay, perfect. So then
you just need login information like the name, first and last name, and emails for people who would like to have like a week to play around with it. So if like you or Erica can send a list over, we can get that set up. Yeah,
absolutely. So what we'll do, I think, is if you can please you sign onto this call, so we should have your email addresses, and I think everybody added their name. Jeff, if there's somebody specific at your agency that you want to make sure to get that login, since there's like 10 of you on the call based on your user for Zoom, let me know who you want that to be. But then otherwise, we'll download this list, everybody, and make sure that you get a temporary login for you said for a week, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We can absolutely do that then.
So yep, that sounds good. Yeah, are there any other questions? There's a few. I know we just have a few minutes left. So yeah, if there's any other questions, I'd love to answer them. And if not, I can just walk through a little bit more of the data that might be relevant.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there are any more questions. So if you want to showcase a couple other things, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, I'll just show you. So real quick, just the other option with the multi-layering is the OR. So I'll just show you. So maybe you want to look at, educational attainment. If we click here to the OR, it's going to not just show us areas of intersection, but do like an overlay. So this is this layer is the percent of people with less than a high school diploma. So maybe you want to see where this is like 15% or higher, right? So, and then if you want to overlay and get a sense of like how that relates to, say, poverty, something like that, right? So now instead of showing you just the areas of intersection, again, it's going to use different shadings, right? So now the blue areas are areas that where 15% or more of adults have less than a high school diploma. And then this hatching is showing you where the poverty rate's higher than 10%. So you can see where they both are true, but also where one is true and not another, and vice versa. So it's letting you do, more of like an overlay. Yeah, so maybe you wanted to think about also maybe where there's lack of access to like the internet, right? Just as another potential like measure, if you want to see where that's, a fifth or more of households don't have access to the internet, right? So again, you can see areas where all three of these things are true and click on them and see the values for all of them. But you can also see kind of in general how they relate and click on any area and see the value for those 1 to 5 variables. But any that don't meet the threshold you defined will just be grayed out. And so I just wanted to show there's this kind of different use cases, but I think they're both, there's utility of both for sure that could be valuable. So that is the multi-layering, and then won't show you all the reports, but there are kind of pre-canned reports that are available. So there's a community profile that's really helpful for like if you want to, for getting just kind of overview of a community and how it's changing. So again, if you create a radius region and you want to find out like how the community is changing, you could do that. And then there's for those of you that are kind of more are focused on health, there's a really nice community health report that's more of like a dashboard. So say if we wanted to generate one of these for Westmoreland County, this is going to be more provide like as a resource within the tool that is more dashboard related. So it's going to provide a lot other kind of visualizations beyond maps. So different charts and graphs and whatnot, kind of in this case, pulling up together a lot of the kind of health related data in the tool. And you can also extract the graphs and the charts and everything. So if you want to insert them into, say, needs assessments or other things that you do. But with this health report, so you can see it like covers these different areas. And then it's really long. You can download a PDF of the report. And again, you can also extract like images of the graphs and charts and stuff that are in here. But it's very long, but I just want to show you that there's these additional kind of dashboard resources, right? If you wanted to download a list of all the mental health facilities in the county, you can also, download data through these reports as well. And again, you'll get like benchmarks and whatnot, and a lot more kind of charts and graphs and things like this. And so, I just wanted to point out that these are resources. You could download a list of the medically underserved areas. And it kind of goes on for a long time. So I won't show you the whole thing, but I just wanted to point out that these are, are resources that are in here. And then it ends with a long social determinants of health section as well. And so that is available. And then again, that community profile report also be very helpful for you. And happy to walk anyone through that at another time. But I know some of you focus on housing, and you'll see a lot of like housing, home ownership, rentership data, a lot of cost burden data, identifying areas with extreme cost burdens, with various disaggregations, and a wealth of housing related data that will be useful for those purposes, as well as where subsidized housing locations are, et cetera. And I think if anyone has any specific data questions, happy to answer them. But you see like incarceration rates by place of childhood at a neighborhood level, where there's lack of access to transportation, and environmental and disaster risks, and all kinds of information in the quality of life menu. But if anyone has any questions about any data, happy to answer it. This is also a find bar for data. So if you're wondering if we have data related to a topic, while you're logged in, you can type that in here, and it can help you find any options that are available. But I think, I can stop there if nobody has any other questions.
So we don't have any other questions, and it's 9:57. So I think we can go ahead and pause on the demo. Really appreciate your time, Kristen.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
folks have additional questions that you didn't get answered, that you weren't comfortable asking live, feel free to email either myself or Erica, and we'll make sure to get them answered for you. Jen, I have your question noted, and we'll make sure to get that answered privately for you. Again, just as a reminder, right, today we have the CNA tool that is accessible through part of your membership. We are exploring this as an add-on. I know Jen Wintermeyer at Tri-County has really just sang PolicyMap's praises and how great it is and how dynamic the mapping tool is. And so we know that this would be a solution for many of you on some, a dynamic opportunity to continue to access data in a way that CNA tool just doesn't do completely, in today's format. So exploring this as an add-on, part of our ability to and our interest is right trying to make sure that we're providing the right tools and resources for you as agencies. And so based on the number of agencies that are interested allows us to make sure to get to a cost that's reasonable for all of you. So that's part of why we wanted to make sure to have this call. So if you are absolutely interested, if you can please make sure in pursuing this, maybe it's after you do the tryout, that would be totally fine. We'll also give you some pricing information, etc. So this is not a commitment, but if you are interested at all based on what you saw, if you could email Erica, that would be fantastic. And that will give us a good indicator about moving forward or not. So again, thank you for everybody's time. Thank you to Erica for getting all of this set up for us. We appreciate you and look forward to hearing from everybody.